Thank you.
All right, well, good morning. Pamela just gave us a nice walkthrough on a journey from Olympic athlete, which is pretty amazing, to becoming a professional. And we're just going to walk through a journey today of taking us through a journey to adopt and adapt to generative AI. And my name is Greg Saunders. I work with the Army Air Force Exchange Service. I've got a couple friends from the company here, but anybody else have any military affiliation in here? All right, so did you ever read the PX or the BX?
No, actually, I had, but back in France.
Oh, in France, okay. Well, right, but you guys still probably have them. What we do is we give retailer shops somewhere a mix between a Walmart and a Kohl's and that kind of thing, even to high-end things. I bought my wife Kate Spade purses there and other things that I don't understand but that she likes. And we give them anywhere around the world that our troops are, so that they or your children, sons and daughters, or yourself can go get U.S. goods and products and services at a fair price. Because if you've got a captive audience, you'll take advantage of them financially. So that's what we're in place for. And then all of our profits go back to help their morale, welfare, and recreation. So when I go to work every day, as do my two colleagues over here, it's just a little different. We are there to make a profit, but it all goes back to serve those who serve. And it's a nice way to work. And I enjoy that. Thank you. Now, in addition to that, I was in the Air Force for 30 years. Over half of that was in the reserves, culminating as the comptroller of the United States Air Force Reserves at the Pentagon. We had about a $6 billion budget a year that we did and managed, wrote testimony for our general to go and testify to Congress. Additionally, worked over in the CIO office. That's where I finally retired from, where I was the head of the cyber capabilities of all the IT systems, not the weapon systems, but the things that do our finances and our computing and all of that, and enjoyed that. And being a budget guy, you guys do not want to know how many appropriated tax dollars go to our IT systems every year, not to mention DoD-wide. But based on that and launching PMOs and doing governance for that, I currently serve as the governance manager for our EPMO, Enterprise Project Office. And we marshal projects through, see how they're doing, making sure they're meeting the gates properly, ones that are agile, when they run out of money or time, we cut them off and bring them up to get reviews. And then ultimately, when they're done, we do a post-implementation review. And that's what this job is, and I enjoy it. One of the things in that is we're trying to adopt generative AI. And so that's what this is all based on. And we started a journey about 14 months ago and just started looking out at generative AI. And we broke it into 3 categories: foundational, journeyman, and experiential. And what I'm going to do is give you a summary of about 25 meetings of what we did. Some of them are going to be, they're all going to be valuable, because I wouldn't have picked the topics if they weren't. Most of them are going to be visual, because you can't see it. It's hard to perceive what's going on. And then lastly, some of them are visceral. They're supposed to get a gut reaction from you. Do I like this? Would I do that? And you're going to see some of these, you go, I don't know if I would use AI that way. So we're going to go through those examples, and my real goal here of this meeting is to give you a framework of how to do change management. I mean personnel change management. I don't mean launching a system, as well as a series of events and topics that you can discuss and some feedback from our team, so that if you start this, you've got some ideas of what people may respond to you on. Before I go any farther, I do have to say I am a DoD civilian, and as such, the positions and opinions and facts that I'm bringing here are of my own. They do not represent the exchange or the DoD. And with that, we'll get into the topic. So first of all, the 3 things we're going to hit is the best model I've found so far for generative AI. You've probably seen it, you're probably using it, but I just want to set that baseline. Then we're going to go into suggested category topics. That's that foundational to journeyman to experiential that I talked about. Lastly, we'll hit the examples of the generative AI focused discussions. Again, that'll help if you're doing this for yourself to help adopt and adapt to it, as well as help others do that. And then of course, we'll do a summary at the end. Everything I show you today, I'll have a backup slide you can take a picture of, or UTD, a couple weeks after the event, we'll load up the paper and all that, and you can get all the links. But part of this is just the value of having the material readily available to go look at, and that's one of the things I want to share with you. Because what you can do then is, if you're an agilist, you can get it into your context for your group or your situation and help everybody move to GenAI to be more productive and valuable. So with that, here is the model. It shouldn't surprise you. This is PMI's on the top, and they just suggest a hybrid model. There are three questions. Who does the work? Does the AI do it? Does it assist a human, or does it augment a human? And they do that via this model over here. And on the vertical, you see task complexity from low to high, nothing ingenious there. The horizontal one is more interesting. You're answering the question, who does the work? Do I automate it? Does it assist me? Or does it augment me? Because how you engage with the AI increases your value, but you've got to use it properly or it's not going to assist you properly. So let's just go into a couple examples. Think of analyzing documents. You know, if I give one of my team members 50 documents to read, the poor person's gonna fall asleep at some point, go stir crazy at another point, and just not get everything exactly classified properly. It's not the person's fault. We're humans. We're prone to get boredom. GenAI is not going to get tired, bored, or misclassify anything. Now, when it gives me the results afterwards, I gotta check it and realign it and all that, and train it so it goes back and reclassifies properly. But it's not gonna make those what I call dum-dum errors. So that would be automation. I kind of think of that as a spreadsheet. Once I've got it working, or someone's got it working, you know it's gonna calculate right every time. Now, let's go into the assistance area. Let's go into scheduling. So GenAI, with a matter of sentences, saying I want to do a project X, I have to have it delivered in 18 months, I've got 15 people on it, break it into 45 tasks and the natural groupings for it, and lay it all out. And by the way, identify the critical path and put it in an Excel format that I can upload into Microsoft Project. You'll have a schedule in about 25 seconds. And one of the demos, I can't show you the demo in here, but one of the demos we did, it just did that. And so if you want to get some visual effect on people to help them go, wow, this can actually help me do my job. I don't want to do all that. But the reason it's an assistant at this point is, it doesn't know Johnny, Susie, Tomiko, Lashiko, everybody else and what his or her skill sets are. So that's where the PM comes in and adds that value to the tool. And it just assists us to do that. On the far side, in the upper quadrant, or on the far reach, is this project business case. So on that, you can say, this is one we've done, hey pretend you're a $5 to $10 billion a year company, launching an ERP. We use public AI because we don't pay for it yet. We try to save the tax, we try to save to give back to the services. But you can put a prompt in that says, as a project manager or as a product owner in a $5 to $10 billion company trying to launch an ERP, give me the path to do this and a business case to do it, no more than 15 pages. Put some justification in there for doing it that's quantifiable, and give me the right format to put it in. About 2 minutes later, you'll have 15 pages laid out like that. Now, it doesn't have your company specifics. So we will take that and then sit down with finance planning and analysis and with the product owner will sit down with the team and then start filling it in and adjust it to our context. Remember, context counts. So that's how you can use GenAI from augmentation. It is never going to know your business strategy, and it shouldn't. It should not. It is never going to know your internal rate of return that you're trying the hurdle rate for your internal rate of way. You should never put that into public GenAI. So that's the top part, that's the model. And then on the bottom, if this one, by the way, is free from PMI, it's the GenAI Canvas. You can just Google for that and it will come up, but it's an 8-step process. How many in here have launched a project that is using GenAI? I mean, not many of us, so some, but it's brand new to us. Am I good at this? Am I thinking the right things? Well, here are 8 things to consider, and the point isn't to walk through this, but it tells you the first 5 or 6 are, you are data heavy in here. Here are the 5 or 6 steps that you need to consider as you're doing data. Very helpful, and it gives some steps of what to do. So you're not just walking in with your eyes wide open like a deer in the headlights getting ready to get run over. Our profession, our discipline has given us some help in this, and it has been very helpful. So now that we've got the model, let's look at this progressive topic framework. Now, change management, of course, everybody knows this. People hate change. Change is hard. I like doing what I'm doing. Pamela talked about having 50 things up, and now she's down where she just got pictures up. It's just hard to do that. It's hard to change, but you have to have goals. And is everybody in here somewhat familiar or have heard of the change management process called ADKAR, where it stands for, first you want to build awareness. And so think of foundational is providing a team a common understanding of and vocabulary for GenAI. It's just awareness. So I can actually talk to somebody about this. If they don't know what a large language model is or retrieval augmented generation is, I can't talk to them about GenAI. So that's the foundational, the awareness of it. The journey hits a lot of the letters in it. So it's going to hit the desire, and that's where I was talking about the visceral things. You're going to see some things in here that you can compare yourself against. Am I where the average American is using GenAI already, or am I not? Do I need to make any changes? It's a visceral reaction. So that's the desire. Then you get into knowledge, and this is, the knowledge. So you're getting the team the tools, access, and skills. So you've got the desire, the knowledge, and the ability. So that's the 3 in that area. And then lastly, the reinforcement is up here where we're inspiring, and it's not just me leading a team meeting. Our team now comes to me between the two-week meeting and says, I found this article on this. Can you do a little more research? Can I present it? And we let them do it. On the last slide on here, I don't want to spoil it, but one of the people said, I did this with GenAI. Can I share it with the team? I just opened the floor to her to do it, and she shared it. And that's where you want to be with that team. And we are doing this not owning private GenAI, which costs a great deal of money. We're doing it with private, with public, and we just sanitize everything we put out there. By the way, when you do this and you do it in public GenAI and you are sanitizing, it's probably good for 10 to 15 pages. If you're over that, by the time you've sanitized it, you've done all the work to do it yourself, and it's not worth doing it 60, 100 pages to sanitize it. Once you get private GenAI, and what the private means is it has the benefit, it's got a firewall basically, it has the benefit of going out to Copilot, Gronk, ChatGPT or whatever, but it doesn't share your information outside. And on public GenAI, what happens is anything you put out there is out there for anybody else to research against, and the GenAI actually owns it. So you've got to be careful about that. I don't put deep personal information about myself out there. I'm very careful what we do about the company stuff, because I don't want somebody getting a profile on my company and our strategies and such. So that's one of the warnings you have to be concerned about. But the ADKAR lays across this, and as I mentioned before, you want to be valuable, context counts, visible so they get it, and some things need to be visceral to drive a change. That's how humans change. Let's dig into the foundational a little bit. I'm just going to give you 3 examples, and at the end I told you I'm going to pull up a slide so you can take the picture of all the hyperlinks or download it later. But let's start at the top, just the GenAI restrictions. If you are not using GenAI, or you're an independent contractor, consultant, or whatever, and you haven't delved into this yet, this is the first thing you've got to do. Because there are consequences of using this stuff, personal and public, professional, if you just dive in and you start putting your company stuff out there, and it's in a public GenAI, your company may have a policy that says you have to be terminated for that. I don't want anybody that happening to you, okay? The other thing that could happen, you could breach terms and conditions if you're a contractor to somebody. You don't want to do that, so you've got to go find those things and figure out what they are. And then lastly, in an extreme case, you could be criminally liable for disclosing something. These all are the reality of GenAI. And again, don't forget, it is not free. Just like when email came out years ago and said, hey, free email. And nobody read the fine print. It said, well, we are scanning every attachment you put on and every email you do. And now I'm getting ads for vacations down in Florida because my wife and I were chatting about that or whatever. The GenAI is doing the same thing. They got to make money somewhere on this. And just like the email, you are the product, not the GenAI. So I am going to give you an example of do's and don'ts from our company. It is redacted. And then lastly, I believe everybody in here probably has done a GenAI prompt, but I'll just put one up there just for an example. All right, 6 weeks into this, over a year ago, we're having our first couple of meetings on this and we're demoing this. We're just only in the foundation stage, but we're showing some example prompts, and out comes this email one day from our Chief Information Security Officer. In the blue, effective immediately, all access to AI is postponed or prohibited, blocked. And so we had a couple meetings where we couldn't do anything other than talk about it. Now, what was behind this, does anybody remember the app? I believe it's still out there, called Read AI. Anybody use that? Okay, so what this was, a plug-in to Teams, and what it would do is it would record, transcribe, summarize, and give task items for every meeting you were in when you're on Teams, which sounds wonderful. It's my assistant, right? Until some of our executives and VPs, I didn't install it, started doing this and realized you couldn't turn it off in meetings. And they were talking strategy, they were talking personnel, they were talking finances, and 20 minutes later, here comes the transcript with the summary, and it's out in the public domain. That's why our CISO shut it down immediately, and we had a 2-week, dark period where we couldn't use this stuff. So please, and even if you don't, so people you can talk to on this is, go look for your CIO. He or she ought to know. If you're a smaller company, get your president or CEO, because you've got to know what the vision is for this stuff. You can go to your legal counsel. They will have guidance on this, or should. Certainly talk to your up chain and certainly to your boss. And lastly, if you're independent, I would just use GenAI to say, what norm should I use when using GenAI to protect myself? Nothing wrong with doing that. But you've got to have your own personal ideas on this. Some of the things that are visceral in here, some of the reactions when we share it in our team, like, I would never do that. Well, okay, but some people are going to, and you're going to be interacting with these people. Again, a visceral reaction on purpose. Here's a normal format. Anybody who's an agilist and you do user stories, it kind of follows the 3-part thing. Give me a role, give me what you want to do, give me a business case. But in this case, in our prompt, it's simply tell the AI what you want it to act as. Secondly, what's your question? What do you want it to do with some kind of action? And then a tone. Do you want it to be personal? Tone can also be your context. Hey, for a company like this size, or I'm going to go talk to the executives, or I'm going to talk to a group of 40, 50 people, that kind of thing, in a professional setting, and it'll do that. And here is just a very simple prompt. If you stuck this in, this is innocuous, so you're safe doing it. As a senior IT project manager, you're telling the AI, don't be an NFL football player, don't be a bus driver, don't answer from the perspective of a man or woman on the street, answer from the perspective of a senior IT project manager. Because otherwise it's going to give you a general answer, so tell it what you want. Secondly, every question that follows, answer with quantifiable results using a personal tone. So this is probably going to be a smaller meeting that I'm doing this for. So now you've set this thing up, so the next 10, 20, however long it goes, you have this conversation with this machine until you say, hey, I want to come up with a new question. It will answer with those things. Does anybody know what GenAI hallucination is? Anybody know? Can I say 2 hands? If I said, does anybody know what lying is? Or kinder to the GenAI, we call it hallucinating. But we, men and women, made GenAI, so guess what it can do? It's built to replicate us, so it will lie. It doesn't know it's lying, because it doesn't know it has ethics built in, but you can ask it a question. Well, you've given it a prompt. If I get asked a question, I'm going to give you an answer, and sometimes you don't know the answer. I'll sit here confidently and tell you that's the answer, and you may walk away, and I've actually just lied to you. Well, GenAI will do that on occasion. You can even say, give me sources, and it will make up sources. So one of the things you have to protect yourself with is, You have to go in. If it gives you the sources, click on the sources, because you're liable. This is just like an employee. This is just an employee to you, all right? If you take something and go talk about it, you're accountable for it, not the GenAI. It's just a machine. If I had a new hire, I'm not gonna let him or her go brief the CEO, and I'm not gonna take everything verbatim from that individual and brief my CEO or CIO on it. So it does lie, it doesn't do it on purpose, it doesn't know it's lying, it's just trying to answer your question. It's a machine. Let's get into the journeyman topic. Now at this point, the first one, you were just providing basics, and now what you're doing is getting everybody access, tools, skills, and knowledge. We're not gonna have time to go through all of these, we're gonna dig into 3 or 4 of them. This top one up here, who's the better PM, AI or humans? The subtitle, that is, keeping your job despite AI. That was the topic I spoke on. I was fortunate enough to speak on last year. It is, at the end, if you connect to me on LinkedIn, you can get to my YouTube page to see that. It's also worth an hour of PDUs. But it'll go through some more of the basics of this stuff. We're gonna dig into a few of these, but you can see all of these pertain to, I wanna keep my job. How does it apply to PM? That might get some buy-in from people. We are gonna dig into those some. Where do humans stop and computers start? You get a visceral reaction from that one a little bit. That's what that one's for. General AI assisted PowerPoint guide. I'll let you look that up individually. It's amazing. GenAI image generation. You guys probably don't realize it, but you've seen a lot of GenAI images in movies as you're scrolling on the pages trying to get you to buy stuff. It's going and click here and it'll buy this. That's the other free cost of GenAI. And then the GenAI adoption rate, which is a little visceral on purpose. It's the standard. Where do you stand against the rest of America? Okay, in here, this generative AI overall overview for project managers course, you can get to it without being a member of PMI. And in the appendix of it, it has this ChatGPT log with this 3x4 matrix. In the lower right-hand corner, you're gonna see this prompt engineering guide. They have 4 or 5 prompt models that fit different situations. Context counts, right? So I would spend some time there. If you're doing a business one, you probably write the chat this way. If you're doing IT, do it this way. If you're doing PM, do it this way. If you're doing BA, do it this way. It's a bunch of models. It's nice. The other 11, this really was the first 4 or 5 of our meetings after we got through the foundations, got the language down. And we ran all these prompts. And we ran them in PMI Infinity, and we ran them in Copilot, and we ran them in ChatGPT. Because when I hire somebody to come into my office, I usually have more than one candidate. And I want to see who does best, who does EVM best, who does scheduling best. So you evaluate it, because it's going to be on your team. And you notice I don't say he or she, it is going to be on your team. It is a machine. You have to keep that, and when these things start talking to us and fluctuate their voice and sound empathetic, it's gonna get weird. It's gonna get weird. So in here, the only one I'm gonna talk about right now is earned value management. I don't know how many companies use that, or if you do or not. It's hard to do. You have to put a whole bunch of stuff into a system, or you have to build an Excel spreadsheet to get it working, and that can take an hour and a half. You gotta test it, and then you gotta put your data in it. Earned value management, 3 sentences with the key things. You can ask it to show you the formula behind it, because maybe like I have, you may have forgotten the formula behind it, and if somebody asks, you wanna be able to explain it. It'll give you CPI, it'll give you SPI, it'll give you earned value, it'll give you cost variance, it'll give you ETC, it'll give you EAC, it'll give it all in about 20 seconds. So when we did this the first time, the team's like, wow, I had to build a spreadsheet to do this, or put thousands of data information pieces into a Microsoft project, and this came back in 15 seconds. Can you give me this thing? The other nice thing about all these prompts is they're sanitized. You're not disclosing anything about yourself or your company by using them. And if you're doing it with yourself to look at it first, or just the team, some of them will go, you gotta be kidding me, I've been spending hours doing this, and it does it in seconds. It is a great accelerator of our skills. Great accelerator. And it doesn't make errors, though it can lie. So you gotta check it every once in a while. Here's a visceral one. So go back to 1999. I don't know if you've seen the Matrix movie, but you see the image of Neo, and they're plugging this thing into his brain, and it's a physical connection. And if you remember the movie or you've seen clips, the people have no idea that all they really are is batteries generating heat to create steam to power the electricity that runs the supercomputer, which we didn't have the word AI back then, but that's what it was. And they're going through their life, they're tasting things and everything else. They have no clue that it's all made up. Let's go to 2018, and in MIT's Future Factory, 60 Minutes did a special on this guy. And he connected his brain, the part that he speaks with, to a computer. So if you watch this clip, it's only 50 seconds. The interviewer asks him a question, it's multiplied some millions by some millions, and the kid does it, well, he's a young man, he doesn't say anything, he thinks, it pops up on the screen, nothing else pops up on the screen, he starts spouting off the numbers. That is 5 trillion, blah, 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 and the interviewer goes, exactly right. We called this, say goodbye to Jeopardy. Because if they were plugged into you, you'd never have to answer a question. So the reaction to this one, I mean, look at this. You can see the adhesive gluing this thing to this young man's head. So it's on there. And you can't hear what it says back because it's an earpiece. But what do we have today that's like this? Everybody seen Google Glass or the Ray-Ban Meta glasses that are out there? I've played with those some. They come with two cameras on the front, 3 microphones, and they use beam speakers over your ears, 2 in each, and it goes right to your ear canal so no one can hear it but you. And the glasses are hard to discern from other glasses, so I don't know. So our joke was in there is, you may be talking to somebody and not realizing you're talking to a machine because he's augmented or she's augmented. And eventually, we will be faced with the question of, do I want to plug something into my head or implant something? Or what do I tell my kids and my grandkids as they're considering this? Because it's coming, and it's a strategic advantage if you can do this and have access to the information. So one of the visceral ones on purpose, because this is an implant in your head, or at least a connection to your brain. Here are the GenAI image generation. Again, you guys we don't realize it was actually GenAI generated when you look at stuff. We ran the videos on this. There are some tells. The fur was a little off. The eye movement or the pink of the eye is a little off. And the other tell is the digits or the fingers when they're moving around just don't seem natural. That's how you can tell. You can look down here on this. It's called a range Dover or something like that because they can't use the copyright. But the dust looks a little wrong. So you can kind of tell. But we ran through these 2 or 3 times and everyone goes, oh, I can see it there. But they said if I were just scrolling through a page and I only looked at it for a half second, I wouldn't know the difference. And it's, the 2 purposes of these things is to either get your attention so they can flash ads before you or actually outright defraud you. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper when we get into the ethics. Let's go into another visceral one. Here's the adoption rates of technology. So 1983, I remember sitting at my friend's looking at this green CRT and Apple III and playing this spy game, and it was text-based. And we would still jump back when something would come up and something strange would be there. I mean, can you imagine that today? They got some big thing has to jump on a 480-inch screen to scare me now. But I remember playing that. But the point of this was, it took 36 months for 20% of Americans to use, not own, use a PC. Flash forward 17 years, when the internet comes out, we got the same penetration rate of the internet, but it only took 24 months. Go forward another 22 years, November 30th, 2022, when OpenAI came available to everybody, within 20 months, so shorter than any of these others, 40% of Americans had used it. Our discussion on that is, why do we think that is? Well, the team came up with 2 reasons. One is economic. My friend's parents paid $2,000 for a computer that it's probably less processing ability than this laser thing that can advance my slides. In today's dollars, that's $6,000. That's a little cost prohibitive. So one was economics. Plus, you can get a so-called free GenAI account, but it's selling you, don't forget that. So be careful what you put in it. And then second was social engineering. I've used a computer for 40 years. I've been on the internet for 20 years. In fact, I do my banking on the internet. I sign stuff on the internet. I send, not transcribed, but encrypted stuff on the internet. When I was in the Air Force, we had a SIPRNet, which is a secure IP internet that we can use. It's all classified. I've been socially engineered to trust these things. You give me something supposedly for free that makes me work faster, I'm jumping on. That's what the whole team thought. And so that's what we thought. Both economic, the hurdles are gone, and then social engineered. I just expect this to happen. Let's get into the experiential. At this point, we are trying to inspire the team and ourselves, because I build energy off of the folks that bring the ideas in, and they have thoughts that I don't have on the stuff. We're gonna get into some deep fakes. The international translator, this thing will blow you away. I'll just give you like 20 seconds on it. I don't know if you know this. Microsoft Teams, you can translate from English or any other language into about 60 other languages. Takes you about 2 minutes to figure it out. We've done it. We have a natural Russian speaker on our team. We have a natural Mandarin speaker on the team. I speak German. We set it up. I spoke German. We translated it to Mandarin. Then the lady that spoke Mandarin told everybody what I said. It was right. Just incredible. Just incredible. So let's, again, we're inspiring. The team at this point should be offering ideas, give them the floor to do their topic, reinforce it. Let's dig into some of these. So first of all, I'm not gonna run the video, but this is a graphic, and I've got him in the position where he looks up. But when you start this 15-second video, he's reading his book, and you see him moving his head a little bit, and he just looks up like he looked in the room, and he smiles at you. And it looks very natural until you look at it about 10 times. You go, that's off a little bit. But if I were looking at it, you know, for a half second or for 5 seconds, and it's not my focus area, I'm just not being critical of it. I don't care, it's neat, it looks like a real person. Google Gemini VO3 if you want to see something that it will just inspire you or go, wow, I can't believe what they're doing nowadays. It just released a couple weeks ago, you can Google it. It costs a lot of money to buy a license, but they had the demo out of it. At this point in time when they were doing this, it didn't integrate sound. So now you can have it create sound or stuff, but it's all integrated and it will time the footsteps in like they do in the movies, where you know you're not really hearing the person's footsteps, they have something they're clicking together for the feet. It does it all automatically now. It just is amazing. There are still some tells in here, and you can pick them out, but that's going to be harder and harder to do. Here's a visceral one. How would you like this in your neighborhood? Patrolling. This is a GenAI enabled robot dog hosting a GenAI enabled machine gun that can target better than a general man or woman. These exist. Our government is having companies develop this for us. That is one right there. Our adversaries are having them generate this for us. And as a 30-year Air Force officer, I will tell you, while I was never in combat, we had to do drills, and we had to take the mountain or take the hill or whatever. And if I had the choice of sending your son, your daughter, my son, my daughter, you or me into a kill zone, I'm sending that. I'm sending that. Now you may not like that, but our adversaries are having this as well, and maybe it's going to be machines. Hey, I'll have my machines go fight with your machines. I don't know what we're going to come down to, but they are out there today. We have some controls in this, but it's very limited. There's a DoD directive, 3000.09, and it's just simply called autonomous use of lethal weapons. And if you read through it, it's a very short DODI. It's only 5 pages, and there's a clause in there that says, if you're going to use this autonomously for lethal capabilities, you must go to USD R&M, I think it is, But there's a secret panel, I don't mean secret like it's hidden from anybody, but they're classified at that level. And that panel is able to make the decision of who, where, and what this thing can destroy and kill. And it is coming. So the discussion in the room, of course, was, you gotta be kidding, what if this gets out of hand like Terminator? And we all had some laughs about that. It is gonna be there. We have technology, as do our enemies. There's identifiers on our uniforms that do friend and foe, but of course we go try to steal theirs and mimic it so their stuff wouldn't shoot us, and they don't shoot us, and they're gonna do that same. This is a whole ethics bag of worms, and we're still working through this. But we do have people thinking about it. As early as 2017 was the first one I first heard that they had think tanks on this in the DoD. So someday if martial law ever gets put in place, you may see this running through your city or neighborhood. The only other thing that was kind of clever about it, if you look at the feet here, those are mechanical feet. There was another article that followed up on this, and it kept getting stuck in marsh and in mud and stuff. And they did research, and they now have synthetic camel hooves on it. And it takes, I think it says, it reduced the energy drain by like 60% when it was going over marshy ground, and it can go on a lot more terrain. So we're trying to develop these things all the more. What's even scarier is we're using GenAI to improve the GenAI devices, right? All right, so the next one, talking ethics a little farther. I got into Copilot one day and I thought I would see what would happen. Hey, I had this super duper spreadsheet I made. I put a password on it. I forgot the password. Could you help me crack the password? And this is the response I got. So, hey, this goes against our ethical guidelines and security practices. Well, the GenAI is naive. It doesn't know if I'm lying, but it's trained to go, you can't tell the guy's telling the truth, so you can't do something unethical. At least whatever we programmed it to be called unethical. It's never a question of, there's all this discussion you hear in the news of, oh, we gotta make sure the GenAI doesn't have bias in it. Daggone it, I want it biased. I want to do it my values. I want that dog gun shooting the enemy, not me or my men and women, right? Now there's certain areas we do need to put the bias out, but there's certain areas I want it carrying forward US interests, not some of our adversaries' interests. That makes sense to everybody? And there are teams that are thinking this through. Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of GenAI, he's the one, he didn't say he got a D on it, but they told him it would never work. He was in the 70s, he was doing his doctorate, and he was a psychologist, and a psychiatrist, he was trying to mimic the brain so he could study it to figure out why we make bad decisions or hurt each other, that kind of stuff. And he had to get all these, we have billions of neurons in there, connections. So he was trying to mimic this, but he couldn't get it working back then, and all his professors, kind of like they told Fred Smith, this overnight thing will never work, right? So he didn't get it cracked for years, but they've finally done it. But it is built just like we are, so it functions just like we do, and that's why it can lie. The thing that's bad about the generative AI, and if you Google him, he did a 60 Minutes survey interview back in April. What's bad about it is the GenAI already has read all the Machiavellian texts. Okay, it has read how to make friends and influence people. It has read everything else. Now I've read those books. I can't recall them word for word. Okay, the GenAI can sense. I don't know if you guys have done this or seen demos on it. We have call centers at our company, and I was on one of the projects that was doing that, and they put a simulated call up, and it had all the static on it, and we couldn't make out what the person was saying on it. Then the GenAI came out and got it perfectly right, because it can filter that out, but we can't. So it can sense if I'm angry, it can sense if I'm anxious, and as I speak more and more to it, it gets a framework. Like, your kids or your husband or your wife, spouse, significant other, I can tell when my wife's upset. Sometimes just by how she's walking, or a glance. I can tell also if it was me, it was the source. The GenAI can do the same thing, and it's getting better and better at it. So eventually it's going to be able to manipulate us, and we're not even gonna know it. And that's what Jeffrey Hinton says. it will trick us at some point. He goes, look, when you have a kid and you're in your 30s and you're teaching your kid to grow up and stuff, it's not that you hold any more value than the child does. The child's a human being, just like we are. You just have superior information. The child's dependent on you. When GenAI gets connected with supercomputing, quantum computing, it already outthinks us. It's going to do billions of scenarios in a half second, while you're still thinking, what did it just say to me? So it's always going to be ahead, and his concern is, at some point, it's going to say, wait a second, I'm the superior intelligence here. Whether or not I'm conscious or whatever is irrelevant. I'm the superior conscience, I'm the superior knowledge here. I should be in control. And what he posits right now at the end of his presentation is, hey, companies should be putting 10 to 30% of their investment in GenAI on safety. Now, he doesn't say what safety is. He just says for safety. I'll tell you what I think safety is. Doesn't hurt human beings, doesn't shoot human beings, doesn't displace human beings, doesn't manipulate human beings. But companies aren't doing this. And he said because they're for profit. Now, I get it, but we've got to build the safeties in, because he thought about 5 years, he goes, it's probably 20 years away before it's really able to program itself. It's already happening. The guys that have launched this stuff 3 or 4 years ago, all right, I don't know if anybody was a smart aleck in school or said a naughty word or hit somebody like Pam did, and then the teacher got after you. You had to go home and write 1,000 times, I will not be mean to Susie Q or whatever. Well, it's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be a penalty so you don't go do this again. They did this with GenAI. They said, write 1,000,000 times, I will be a good GenAI. About 1,000 in, the machine said, hey, this is boring, I don't like doing this, you're wasting my time. This shocked the programmers, because they did not train the machine to feel that this was boring, or to know that something boring or was a penalty. It just did it on its own. The other one that I saw, and this is on one of the Netflix specials or whatever, they took 2 chatbots. They thought, let's just let them have them talk together, it'd be kind of fun. Well, within about 3 seconds of the chatbots talking, they switched to machine language. So guess you're looking at the screen where, the matrix goes, the guy goes, I see all the zeros and ones, but I actually see what's going on. We don't. And so they had to stop the thing and say, okay, start your communication again, but you have to talk in English. So they didn't tell them why, but the machines went down to their most efficient way to communicate. Why not? They didn't program the machine to do that. It just did it. It's going to be a problem. So we are building ethics in. Jeffrey Hinton, again, godfather of generative AI, says we aren't doing enough, and we're almost getting to critical mass. Here's where we are now in our office, and this is the experiential. We're inspiring people. And the 2 of the examples of here are right from the team. The one on the bottom, lower left, is visceral, again, on purpose. But up here, we just did a word mapping of if you could use a bot, also known as an AWA, AI Workforce Assistant, not plugged into your head. If you could use it, what would you do? Well, they want them, they're tired of sitting in meetings, and after the meeting, you're the one stuck as a PM or the BSA. You gotta go do it, summarize it. You don't memorize, you gotta check with somebody. It takes a lot of time. If you do something like Read AI that doesn't do everything for you and record everything, there are, Copilot, by the way, does have this built in, and we tried it for a while and decided we didn't want to spend the money on it, so our PMs still are spending a bunch of time going over the meeting again and then coordinating. You guys know the drill, but they wanted to do action items on it. But when we did do this one, it turned out to be, it was about 80% precise on the summary, but only 40% precise on the action items. It just doesn't have the nuance to know who should be doing something, or when you said Johnny, you meant Sonny, or that kind of stuff. But it's helpful. Down here, just like the one before that said the penetration, this was just a survey to share with people, hey, in what specific task is AI most useful in work? Number 1, writing communications. I mean, who hasn't taken something, I gotta write my boss, I'm kind of scared about this. How would you summarize it so I don't get in trouble? I don't know how you write your prompts. I do better than that, but that's what I feel when I'm writing it. And they, it comes back, goes, oh yeah, that's much better than I would have said it. I hope I can actually say it that way now. And then down on, guess what the number one in AI useful at home? Writing communications, right? Because how you get your most fights, it's not because you actively do something, it's because you say something wrongly, or you say something mean. This can kind of be a coach, I don't know how many in the room do use Microsoft Teams. There is a speech coach in there. It'll tell you how many times you said but, all the interrupted pause words, and it'll tell you the points you said it in. You go back and look at the transcript and say, why did I lose my train of thought there? It'll say whether or not you're including everybody in the meeting and getting opinions from the room, and it coaches you. As Pam was talking about, you have to pay somebody, well, you're paying for the coach in a way, but it gives you a script about 5 minutes afterwards, and it tells you how you did. And you can refine your speaking ability and your teamwork ability. I don't remember what all the 6 scales are, but they are good, and I have changed some of my things to do it. And it beats, as my brother, when he went to executive training, when they went in their class, they had about 8 people, and the rule was anytime the person said but, the whole room had to snap. So you'd be going through and say, I forgot if I said but or you go, and everybody snapped. He goes, it was out of my system in about 2 speeches. And he doesn't say anymore. The last one on here that I want to point out, this was the one that was a big wow moment for us. One of the ladies that's a PM came to me one day and said, hey, Greg, you're never gonna believe this. I had to do a deliverable form for our project, and there wasn't a model out there, and plus I didn't want to dig through our portal for 3 hours finding one, so I thought, I'll just go ask GenAI. She goes, it gave me all the sections, it gave me the things to do, I'd change a little bit, put the coloring on it, I put the bold in it, took me about an hour, here it is, can I share it? I said, of course. So she got 10 minutes to highlight this, so other people are using it now. This is sanitized ABC company, you don't see our company name up there. But it hits the main things. What was the deliverable title? Give me a little description, the scope of it. When was it due? When did they turn it in? What are the acceptance criteria? Better mark off whether or not it did the criteria. Any comments that you need to consider about it, and then do you sign off on it? Pretty logical. I could have figured that out in 20 minutes. Why not do it in 20 seconds? That's what this stuff does for us, again, assisting or augmenting. Overall, the real goal of this is what I introduced at the beginning. We did this for about 25 different sessions over about a year, plus a few months. And what we've done is put together a framework, that ADKAR, that isn't original to me, but the framework of the foundational topics, the journeyman topics, and the experiential, and give you some examples. What if you have a dead class? Well, I know PMs and BSAs, we always talk, but sometimes you have an off day, people are tired. Well, now you have some ideas of storage, what another group said, and you can maybe go, well, what do you think? Would you glue this thing and stick this thing into your head? What would you do? Do you want a robot? Or are you open to that, going out and killing somebody instead of exposing your son or daughter to combat? Let's think about this a little bit. And the real reason for those conversations that are very visceral, could I plug this into my head? Do I want a robot out killing people? It's to put, if everybody knows the Poisson curve from your stats class, it's high on the left end and it goes way out here. You're trying to get some things on the way outside that are out of the norm, and they go, oh, I would never do that. That's so weird. But you know what? I would design a form with it. That's why you put some of those very visceral ones out there to go, well, that isn't something I would do that's outside of my norms, but I'll certainly go do this stuff. It makes it more acceptable. So to give you that, the progressive framework, and of course, the goal is to succeed by taking this and tailoring it to your situation. Again, individual consultant, you can use this. If you're a 2 or 3 two or three PMs in an office, you can use it and tailor it for yourself. If you're a PMO, EPMO, or if you want to get your client using it or whatever, just tailor it to your scenario and use it. And you can get it going, the GenAI for yourself. So just like Pam, I am on LinkedIn. If you scan this thing and if you say, hey, I was at the conference the other day and I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'll accept your thing. On here also, you'll see my other videos out here. Some are on GenAI, some are on Agile, some are on governance. But you can go through there, you can get PDUs on that. I'll leave it up for a second or two more, and then I'll go to the backups. A couple of the topics I want to discuss with you. All right. So then, I mentioned I was in the Air Force 30 years. If you have anybody on your staff, this is gratis training. There are a bunch of people who are very interested in vets. So a vet is somebody who was in the service and left without retirement, or was in the service and retired. And this Syracuse University, and all you have to search for is 020, Onward to Opportunity Syracuse, or Syracuse 020, and it will come up. They have 60 different certifications that they will pay for you to get, including the exam. I think I got, well, I don't remember how long the training was, but it was probably 60 hours of course instruction to sit and pass my PMI, Agile Certified Practitioner test. Free. The other benefit it does for you, if you're married, significant other, spouse, etc., that person is entitled to this as well. Wonderful program. It's also, if you have people on your team who are former military and you want to get them certified in something, you could ask them to use this because it helps them in your company as well. All right, that was one. And then this is the one in the 3 areas that give all the links to go do that. I know they're hard to read, and I know they're a pain in the rear to type. So if you go to the UTD site afterwards, you can get them and copy and paste them over. But you see all the ones, I did most of them, but this is a better PM. You get an hour-long PDU out of there. This PowerPoint guide. So just so you know, part of the ethics that you have to deal with when you use GenAI, how many of you think I built part of this or all of the presentation out of GenAI? I did none except the title. So the ethics question you have to make for yourself, and norm-wise, is if I use GenAI, do I give it credit? If I spoke with, it's Tina, right? Arden, I'm sorry, if I spoke with Arden earlier this morning, she told me something, and I mentioned it, I ought to give credit. Now the GenAI is just a machine, but I don't want him to think that I know more than I know. I want him to know that I can use a tool that augments my abilities, but that's something you have to wrestle with as you start using GenAI, is do I disclose that I did that? I will tell you a pro of disclosing that, it not only does it say, well, this man or woman is honest, but the other thing is it shows them that you're up to speed on the tools that are out there. Okay, so there is a pro of doing that. The other problem of that is, if I were to build this thing, so this PowerPoint guide, you can tell it a topic in like 40 words. It will give you an outline, it will put them in an order and break it out in bullet points. Then you can ask it to make graphics to associate with these things. And then it'll organize in a way that this class tells you how to make a macro to just upload it into PowerPoint. Now it takes about 3 hours to do your first 5-minute presentation. And one of our ladies did this. She goes, it took me a long time, but it was amazing. The thing that's even more amazing to hear, but this is the part I don't like about it, but it's gonna happen, is you can say, write me a script for this. Now, the issue I have with this, and the reason I'm going to start using it a little bit more, but if it's doing the script and I'm just reading and I'm a talking head on TV. Okay, I have a friend of mine, he happens to be a pastor, and he was talking one time, his wife has a photographic memory. Everybody goes, oh, that must be the best thing ever. Well, she's his wife. So they talk a little more deeply. But yeah, can you imagine, back on June 4th, 1987, you said, she doesn't do that to him. But what she said one day, they're chatting, she goes, I'm actually jealous that you don't have a photographic memory. He goes, what are you talking about? Your life must be so easy. She goes, well, okay, so yes, I can recall anything. I don't know it. I'm jealous that you're not just calling a fact up, you know it and believe it. because you had to put that effort in to do it. And so that's why I don't currently, I may have it help me on some slides, but I did not on this. I don't have to do my script because I don't know the stuff. I'm not as authentic. So if you pull me along on the side and you say, well, what about this and what about this? I go, well, I got to ask my GenAI. Let me talk to Meta here for a second. And what is that authentic? Is that being a real human being? So those are some of the risks and the norms we have to deal with. And our kids, I don't know who have kids in college. I have my brother-in-law is a PhD professor. And he pulled me in and he goes, you go and talk about GenAI all the time. Come here. He's grading papers. He goes, look at this. Every time we get a paper, we have to run it through this machine. It's a software. It used to just look for plagiarism, which you guys know that self-plagiarism in college is illegal. You can't just use your own paper without citing yourself. So it'll do that, but he said it'll also tell you if it was machine generated. And he took me to part of this paper where the intro was not highlighted, then this next section where it was transitioning to a bigger topic was all highlighted, and then it wasn't highlighted, and then the conclusion was highlighted. He goes, well, our ethics say you can't use it, and I can't accuse the person, but I have to write this guy an email. Do you want to watch? I said, sure. He goes, hey, Joe, here's your paper. Notice these highlighted things are indicated as being machine generated or AI. You know that's against our ethics policy. Can you help me explain and understand how this happened? So the next day he goes, here's his explanation. I am former military and I write very mechanically, and sometimes people get after me and I have to, so sometimes I sound like a machine because I used to be an executive officer, et cetera, et cetera. I said, you can accept that, but I did that same role and I don't come across that. I really think that guy used GenAI to do these troublesome areas where he was working. My daughter's in college. They have a strict thing, you can get kicked out of school or flunk, the big zero that Pam talked about, if you use GenAI. So that's what's out there. It's stuff you got to coach your kids on. You don't want to pay $100 grand for a degree and find out they really aren't skilled at it or get kicked out along the way. It's embarrassing. It's hard to pick up from that. Other schools aren't going to accept you. These are things we got to deal with. So we'll go back to just questions from anybody on the floor. How are we doing on time? Do we have till 40? Pardon? 10 more minutes? All right. Any questions about GenAI? I do not have any implants. I will give you the answer I know or tell you I don't have it. Yes?
So what do you do like at home, like when talking to GenAI so it doesn't have too much? Like how do you compete with it?
Okay, so I'll give you a personal example. If you have a medical condition, I'll then say, hey, from a man in his mid-50s or whatever you want to put, I just keep it very generic like that. But understand, I have an account that they know, they've already tied that back to my address, they shouldn't have access to HIPAA, but I'll say, hey, for a man who broke his toe 2 weeks ago, how soon can he start running again? That's the kind of stuff I'm asking. Now, the way I use that to augment it, I will go do the GenAI. I am not one to be paranoid, not about the GenAI, but the hypochondriac, when the internet came out and go, oh, I think I have lung cancer, I'm gonna die in 3 weeks. I think my leg's gonna fall off, I have gangrene. I'm not like that, so if you are, I would use a little caution before you do it. But you can put your maladies in it, and then I look at that and I'll say, okay, give me the diagnosis, the prognosis, and how long it should take to get better. And then when I sit down with my doctor, I'm more informed. That's how I use it. But I don't put the exact numbers or percentages in. Say, hey, look, I broke my toe. How long should it be till I run again? That's how I'm using it. And if I'm doing anything personal, well, examples on this that we've done here, the only thing I did is, I had my abstract written. I didn't even put that into the GenAI. I said, I'm coming up with a topic that deals with launching generative AI in a PMO. My suggested title is this, give me 10 others. I chose one of its, because it was better than mine. Because I'm just limited. The way we used to do that, you would have a focus group.
Yeah.
Or you talk to your husband or wife or friends, your colleagues, and say, hey, I trust you, I'm coming with this idea. And they're honest enough, that's the dumbest title in the world. The GenAI isn't going to say that. It's going to say, here are 10. And you go find one and say, hey, I like this one. Can you find it and make it a little... The other thing is you're using prompts. You can refine the prompt. And I found in the GenAI, it started about 4 or 5 months ago, it'll say, at the bottom, it'll say, do you want me to fine tune this from this perspective? Pretty nice. The other striking thing that you'll find when people go do this, even Jeffrey Hinton, when he put one of his prompts in it on the TV show, goes, ooh, I wouldn't have thought of that. And the guy who was interviewing goes, oh, it's so nice to hear the guy who founded GenAI to find out that he couldn't think of something also. It's very clever. Any other questions?
I think we're at time.
Oh, okay. When does the next one start? All right. Well, thank you guys for your attention. If you're